So today is the 17th, and I didn't realize it until just a few minutes ago as I was getting out of my car after running errands that, let's see, okay, now I'm going to do math. So my husband passed away on November 17th, and today is June 17th. So November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. It's been 7 months since he passed away. But really I consider it a blessing because he was very sick. He had cirrhosis of the liver, which is caused by excessive drinking for many, many years. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a creepy crawler type disease. You don't really notice what's happening. He always thought because he was so bloated that he was putting on weight, when in fact it was his liver having something to do with his stomach. And then, you know, he always thought that his face was so red because of the sun. That was because of broken capillaries. And just many signs, like lethargic, and then his mind started to go at the end. And it was from so your liver is like a filter for toxins. So whenever you eat something, it filters out all the bad stuff. That's what your liver's for. It's an amazing organ, and you only have one, and if you abuse it, then you don't get another one. So he abused his, and times were really tough. Living with an alcoholic is not easy. I would never wish that upon anybody, but love is blind, and I stayed with him till the very end. So we decided to discontinue the life support because that's basically what he was on for his last 2 weeks of his life. And actually he was on life support even before then. He was in the ICU for a month. The night that I got home and called the ambulance was pretty much when he was lost to me. He was slowly deteriorating for about a week, and he refused to go to the hospital, and finally he was so unable to even lift his head up that we had to take him in. And so I'm being very monotone about this because I can't really get too emotional about this, but I just wanted it to kind of be out there that, you know, I know there are other people out there that live or love an alcoholic or an addict of drugs or something, and it's not easy because you lose yourself, and that's what I did. I lost myself for a few years, the whole time we were married, and pretty much almost the whole time we were together, which was 17 years. So I kind of feel like I'm going back in time and starting my life all over, but at the same time it's really frustrating because I don't know the first thing about anything to do with, you know, things like making friends. He was my best friend. He was the only person I felt like I needed in my life, you know? And it's kind of difficult to kind of comprehend. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, so today marks the 7th month anniversary, and pretty soon it's going to turn into a year, and then it's going to turn into 2, and then it's going to turn into 3, and then, you know, life just keeps on going. No matter what happens, life goes on, doesn't it? So, but it was really hard. He was throwing up blood at the last, and his urine was very dark, his urine was full of blood. And they had him on 24/7 dialysis because his kidney became in renal failure, which means that they were shutting down because they were overcompensating for the lack of no liver. His liver, I mean, you've seen probably documentaries about alcohol and what it does to your liver or drugs. Well, I mean, it was just bad. I mean, it was probably as hard as a rock and just shriveled up to nothing and just a useless organ. Had he been a cancer victim, or had he been a victim of some other disease where he didn't inflict it upon himself, he probably would have been alive today. He probably could have gotten a transplant, and he may have survived. But he was so far gone that it was pretty impossible to make that happen. When he was admitted into the ER, I was pretty much in denial the whole time. I mean, I thought he'll be okay. They're going to give him some medicine and everything's going to be okay. But the thing is that he wasn't okay, and the medicine wasn't helping. They had 2 nurses in the room with him at all times. He had a room all to himself because he had all this machinery by him. His family stayed with him as long as they could. Every day, his sister was there. And then I came in after. I worked part-time during the time he was in the hospital so that I could spend as much time as I could with him in the ICU. We didn't talk because he was immediately given a breathing tube, so we couldn't even talk to him. He couldn't talk back to us. I could talk to him, of course. I talk to him all the time because I feel like maybe he could hear me, but we couldn't ask him the question, like, do you want to continue like this? And being that we're so young, we never had that discussion. And that's another thing. I would highly recommend having that discussion, even though it's a hard one. Just have a discussion with your spouse, or have that discussion with your significant other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever is in your life, that is in your life more than anybody else. Almost as much as a pet. That's a horrible example. Almost as much as you are with yourself. You know, your other half. Have that discussion with them, because you never know what life is going to throw at you. There could be a car accident tomorrow, heaven forbid. But you want to know what they want, because I didn't know. I probably tortured the poor man for a month for no reason. I'm pretty sure that he wanted to go the minute that breathing tube was put down his throat and he couldn't communicate with us. And he couldn't breathe on his own because his brain was like confused, and just all the bodily things were just really confused inside of him. And it's a horrible way to die. And I take comfort in the fact that he's probably much better off right now. I do have some questions about afterlife and if it really does exist, because I've never really thought about it. I kind of feel like he's with me all the time, but sometimes I kind of feel like, well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the end. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe you just die and there's like nothing there. I have faith. I have faith, and I believe in God and everything. And I like to think that there is a better place, but I'm not sure. I don't believe it's like up in the clouds. I think it's around us, and it's just like another dimension that we can't see. That's kind of what I feel. This house is full of his energy, and sometimes it's annoying because sometimes I want to do stuff, but I feel like I can't because I feel like he's still here, which the roommate situation might help with that. And of course getting a job would certainly help with that, because I wouldn't be here so much. But yeah, so his death certificate pretty much explains it all, and it's really hard to look at because it's this long list of things. But the final conclusion to his death was they unplugged the machines on the 17th that morning, probably that afternoon, about 2 o'clock they unplugged the machines. And was it 2 or was it later than that? I don't remember now what time I made the decision, because being his wife, that was on my shoulders to make that decision. I don't remember, but I know that he only lived for a few more hours after that. The family surrounded him, and we all said goodbye to him, and his breathing was so heavy. But it's weird because it's like he made the decision before they even pulled the plugs, because his blood pressure, he was on blood pressure medication to make his blood pressure, he always had a blood pressure problem, and that was because it was too high, but this time his blood pressure was way too low. So this was to actually make his blood pressure higher. But they kept on having to give him more and more of this blood pressure medication, and strange thing is, the minute we decided, his blood pressure started to drop. And that's according to the nurse that was looking after him. It was like he knew that he wasn't going to make it, so, you know, just let me go in peace. And I tried my best to save his life. I really did. But I'll never forget when the doctors kept telling me every week we had to meet with an intensivist, which is the head doctor of the ICU for the week. They had one every week, and I met a few of them. And so every single meeting that we had with him as a family was always the same news. It was always, we can't tell you if he's going to make it or not. Things don't look good. Blah, 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 blah. And they would just give me this long list of items that continued to be wrong. His liver was just the start of it. He had the C. diff infection, which is C. difficile. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's this really horrible thing where you have no control over your bowels and you have horrible diarrhea. So he had that most of the time, so we had to wear gloves and scrub up whenever we went into the room to be with him, and that was the second week he was there. And then he had pneumonia over pneumonia. He had pneumonia, and then he had another strain of pneumonia on top of that. So he had pneumonia times 2. And then his kidneys, of course, in renal failure, and of course, you know, after that they hooked him up to 24/7 dialysis because his body couldn't handle just the usual dialysis, which is usually only, like a few hours a day. They had to do it very slowly. And he was, of course, unable to move. He had to be strapped down for a while because he kept trying to pull the breathing tube out. And then, of course, after a while they did a tracheotomy, which is when they cut your throat and they put the tube in that way. Because if you have the breathing tube for more than 4 weeks, they do that because your esophagus starts to have problems. It just kind of rubs on that, and it's not good. So we had that. So we were hoping when he got that he'd be able to talk. And unfortunately, he was on oxygen, and he couldn't be off the oxygen, so he was unable to talk the whole time. The only time he was really able to communicate, kind of, was the first night he was there, and he thought he was at work, and he got really confused because of the brain damage. And he got really confused, and he started telling all the doctors and nurses, thinking that they were customers at his job, we're closing now, you have to leave, we're closing now, you have to get out of here now, we're closing. He was just really distraught over it. And then of course the last time, which was kind of this thing where my ex-sister-in-law, I don't really know what to call that family anymore. His sister, let's just call it his sister, his sister. She had a program on her iPad where he could point to the letters or like blink or something, or squeeze a hand if she got to the right letter. So he spelled out call Farah, which was, you know, I had been there every day since the beginning, but I think he probably thought he was in a car accident or something and unable to communicate, and he was trying to reach me. The other thing that he spelled out was I love you, and he looked at me when he did it, and so that was... See, there I go. That was really hard because it was the last time he told me that I love you. As much as we fought and as much as I yelled at him to stop the drinking, he would never stop. It was a disease. But it was one that he inflicted on himself. You know, nobody understood how much he drank. Nobody believed me. His whole family didn't even know until they saw him. And he was so jaundiced. He was yellow. You know, he was very yellow. His skin tone was like golden yellow. And I can't even explain it, but it was like, I've never seen a human being that color before. I've seen it on TV, and I've like read about it, but I've never seen it in real life. Anyway, so yeah, I let him go. I said goodbye. I told him thank you for being so wonderful to me, and you know, and all that. And then I left with my mom because I wanted to take a break. And I went home, and that night when I was home with my mom, he passed away at 8:06 on the 17th of November. The holidays were fun because I spent most of them with my family. My job at the time was very understanding, and they let me take off as much time as I needed. Of course, that meant no pay, because I was a temp and I didn't get paid for the time off that I took, but at least they were understanding. My mom came in and we completely redid my house, and I bought new furniture later, new living room furniture, and, you know, I tried my best to move on, to move forward, which I am still trying to move forward now. But it's still not easy, because that burden of letting him go and making the decision, even though his blood pressure was dropping, even before the nurses pulled the plug and gave him some morphine to make him comfortable, that was all on me. Even though I had the family involved, his family involved, and we all kind of took a vote as to what we wanted to do, it was still on me. I could have said, no, let's continue this a little bit longer, but I don't think he would have lasted. And I'm pretty sure he was in so much pain and it was prolonged way too long. Anyway, I'm rambling. But I think that's okay if I ramble about this. But I wanted to talk about it for a little bit. So there it is. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.